Hey there, Patreon supporters. Randy Sullivan coming to you with some bonus content. We have a special guest, Chris Kroom, who, it's debatable, but you might be the first Patreon supporter.
Rumor has it anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know if y'all remember when we launched Patreon, we had a problem where something hadn't been verified, and then everybody was off because it was the New Year's holiday, and it took days, so the link was out, but it wasn't active. And the link went active, and somebody that had the link signed up before we did the blast. But you were the first to sign up when we did the blast.
I was the first on the blast. So that's my claim.
We are very appreciative of Chris. And how long have we known each other?
Since high school.
Yeah, I was, so 29 years.
Yeah.
29 years.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, so his little brother was my best friend growing up. And I used to go over to he and his brother, there's a middle brother, their house, and they would do house parties, although I didn't drink back then. But you did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't into the whiskey game yet. It was a lot of, if you think back to the early 90s, you know, what was the rage? Zima.
Yeah.
Yeah, malt liquor.
Malt was good. So what we're going to do for you today is we're going to talk about how many whiskeys can you make from one whiskey. And I think that it can be a bit of a surprise for some people. Like Wild Turkey only has one bourbon mash bill, right? But what you're seeing right here is...
Yeah, I mean, we all know this company here has several.
Several, yeah. So there's a gentleman named Mark that works out at my gym. He watches the channel, but he's not on Facebook. And he said, hey, my brother got me this bottle when he went to Kentucky, and he brought it back, and he's like, it's so bad, I can't even use it as a mixer. And I was like, okay. And he's like, it's totally clear, and I just, you know, and I was like, oh, he bought you New Make or White Dog. And so he was like, can I just give it to you? And I was like, yeah, is there something you've been looking for? And he's like, well, I've been looking for a Jack Daniel's barrel proof rye. And I said, I've got one open, let me give you a sample. And so I mailed him a sample, but he brought this to me. And I just thought it'd be fun to taste it up with a friend.
Yeah, well.
Have you had their White Dog?
I have. I actually have a couple of bottles because I want to do a little barrel experiment on my own someday, but immediately I get cornbread on the nose.
Mm-hmm. It's very corn forward. Corny, if you will.
Yes, very corny.
And does not taste... even in the slightest bit, like any of these whiskeys that are.
Oh, absolutely not.
And just so you all know, every one of these whiskeys that's up here is all made from this same distillate. And the only one that I think is missing from the lineup is regular Buffalo Trace. And of course, you know, special offerings and whatnot. But I think these are all of the core SKUs. So you can kind of go one by one and talk about like what the differences are. So the Benchmark line is different from all of these others because it is probably the youngest.
I'd agree with that.
It is a straight bourbon and it is non-age stated. So that means it has to be...
And to me, it tastes like a 2-year bourbon.
It's not. It's got to be at least a 4.
Right.
So
it just tastes very young.
I like this because chances are Buffalo Trace... just regular Buffalo Trace bourbon is a 4 to 5 year bourbon.
So I know they've got a no age statement on it. Mm-hmm. But what does the research say on it?
It says they probably bottle this exactly at 4 years.
Okay.
Because it's a really inexpensive product. But what that means is that the Benchmark is not significantly different from regular Buffalo Trace bourbon. Mm-hmm. And some of the Benchmark offerings are very close to the proof. So it's the same distillate, it's the same age, and it's the same proof, right?
Right.
And so it's funny because liquor store managers are like, I get Buffalo Trace in, and there's a line out the door, and I got Benchmark, which is effectively the same thing, just sitting on the shelves.
Just a little younger.
Yeah, and it may not be.
Right.
Regular Buffalo Trace is non-aged as well. And so that is one example of how there's a whole lot of overlap in the factors. But as we go through the list, you're going to see there's 3 factors. Well, really 4. One factor is age. Mm-hmm. One factor is proof.
Yeah.
Another factor is going to be the barrel selection process. So theoretically, when they're tasting these barrels, some taste like this line versus another line. And so it's just kind of interesting. So Eagle Rare, the regular Eagle Rare, is different from Buffalo Trace, even though they're the same proof.
And it carries the age statement of 10 years.
But it's 10 years. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at Buffalo Trace, a 5-year product versus 10 years. So that's how that's different. Eagle Rare 17, obviously, 17 years old. Mm-hmm. Now we jump up to Stag. So we got a different in age and proof. So Stag itself is rumored to be around 8 years old, although it's not age stated. And then George T. Stagg, over the last few years, they do disclose when they release the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, has always been just over 15 years old. So,
oh, wow, I didn't realize it was that old.
So, but if you look at this lineup, this whiskey is used to make this, and this, and they're all cask strength. And the benchmark full proof, which is 125, is pretty close in proof to all three of these, right?
Yeah.
Or all four. So if you add this as a fourth, even though it's full proof and not cask strength, this one's 4 years, this one's 8 years, this one's 15 years, and this one is 6 years. And so what's really interesting is to taste this, then taste this, then taste this, because these are only 2 years apart in age, but this one is way more fruity floral, and this one has a whole lot more tobacco and chocolate notes that come from the barrel aging process. So just 2 years made that difference.
2 years, and are they in different warehouses?
Well, that's the barrel selection process, right? Because theoretically, they might taste the barrel and go, this one tastes more like E.H. Taylor than Stag to me. And so, do they consistently get, Stag barrels from higher up in the aging warehouse where it might develop a little differently? Mm-hmm. I don't know. They don't disclose that, but there's huge tasting teams. You might do tours at Buffalo Trace, and if you've got a palate at all, they're going to recruit you to be part of the tasting team because there's so many barrels to taste to identify when they're ready. So this one is an interesting one because this bottle that I have is from a very long time ago when it was still an age-stated product. The website says that this is Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 1. Mm-hmm. Mine says it's aged 8 years, but they've changed the label to just say like number 8 or something like that. And Buffalo Trace has been sued for false advertising because people still believe that they're getting an 8-year Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 1 product when in fact you have no idea how old it is. You only know that it's at least 4 years.
Right.
So now this is kind of a bottom shelf product, and I believe that it's at a lower proof than
this one is 80 proof.
Yeah, so I think it's an 80 proof product. So this would be something very similar to Benchmark at the lower proofs, but I think the lowest proof Benchmark might be 86 proof. So there's a slight proof difference. And then when you get to the Taylors, you've got cask strength. Both of these are bottled and bonds. They're both 100 proof. This one's different and that's the fourth factor. I said there were 4 factors. Some are single barrels and some are batch products. So this is a single barrel and this is a batch product. Mm-hmm. So pretty interesting. And it's fun if you know a distillery's lineup to kind of go through their different SKUs and go, how can I cheat the system and find something that's readily available and cheaper without sacrificing too much?
So the moral of the story is if you like Mash Bill number 1, you have a lot of choices.
You do have a lot of choices for sure. And some of them are easier to find than others.
Sure.
It's crazy because, my favorite product of all time is George T. Stagg. And probably the hardest product to get from the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection is the Eagle Rare 17. But if you go to the store, they've got stacks and stacks of younger versions of that in the Benchmark.
Right.
And, no waiting in lines. So.
At least 2 or 3 of their different bottles on average. I can think of most liquor stores I walk into.
Hope this is entertaining for you guys. As always, we love you and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me.
Yep.